You can all join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, if you could call the roll.
Commissioner Knight.
Present.
Commissioner Robbins.
Present.
Commissioner Belcheck.
Here.
Commissioner Sassi.
Present.
Mayor LeGrand.
Present. I anticipate.
Commissioner Purdue.
Here.
Okay.
I'd ask for a motion to excuse Commissioner Kilgore, who has had a conflict tonight.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that brings us to public comment on agenda items. So the agenda is generally available if you have questions about what's on it. And now is the time for people to come up and have 3 minutes. Before I do that, though, we always have a Spanish language interpreter here, so if she could come up to the podium briefly and introduce herself and say why she's here.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm here to advise that we're going to have interpretation services available for anyone who speaks Spanish. Cualquier persona que necesite interpretación en español, por favor, déjenos saber. Estaremos a sus órdenes para lo que son los comentarios públicos.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones?
I just got a quick question. Y'all got this public hearing. Can I speak on that right now, or I got to wait to the public hearing? All right, cool. Well, I'm going to just say something about the ordinance to be adopted for the fiscal budget ordinance amendment. I'd like you guys to adopt cryptocurrency to our city. I would love for you guys to do this. I'll give you a couple reasons why I believe you guys should do it. For one, just with an internet connection, people can have access to banking. They can have access to banking. As we know, the Rothschild's financial banking system does not work for African Americans. It doesn't work for people of color. It doesn't work for poor white communities. It really works for rich billionaires and elite here and the one percenters. That's what the Rothschild banking system really works for. Also, before I leave City Hall and I give my other public comment, I'm going to be driving to Toronto, Canada for a conference. I'm going to be going to the Consensus Conference where Bo Hines, the executive director of Donald Trump's crypto reserve, that we know the federal government, Bitcoin is at 104,000 now. I'm also going to be seeing Eric Trump there, and I'll also be seeing the person who handles the strategy for BlackRock, which is Larry Fink, 11 trillion BlackRock. So I would really love you to adopt cryptocurrency, David, because I'm going to come back and we need to build economic power globally all across the nation to be able to fight these Republicans, whether it's digital finance, whether it's traditional finance, whether it's entrepreneurs. We need to adopt cryptocurrency for our city because you can adopt cryptocurrency and have revenues without increasing the taxes for any citizen, whether those citizens like D. Jones or not. I do not want to increase taxes for anybody because who likes taxes? The billionaires are always trying to get tax cuts. I'm sure the DeVosses are trying to get some tax breaks for them getting our city taxes. I'm pretty sure they'd be trying to do some stuff like that. So we need to be able to build economic power. We need to stop thinking of the old playbook because you guys are going to get smoked. Y'all gonna get fresh like smoked cannabis that Snoop Dogg gonna roll up or D. Jones gonna roll up. And I'd hate to be rolling up the Democratic pack because y'all got smoked by the Republicans because y'all want to be stubborn and don't want to adopt these things. I also got invited by the Blockchain Institute to be able to speak. So I have people that actually want me to do some blockchain education. I'll educate anybody on the blockchain because you can see that, as I've said, at Mayor's Mondays to you, David, you can send somebody $1 billion in the federal government, the FBI. Nobody is going to ask you, how did you send that person $1 billion? If I wanted to send anybody of you $1 billion so you'll be able to smoke anybody on the campaign because I believe in you guys will smoke people if you had the financial power of $1 billion. You can send $1 billion to anybody on the planet Earth and nobody could do anything about that, and they'll have that and they can be able to do that. The Hispanic community, the undocumented community, the immigrant community, all of these people, even the police, everybody can benefit if you adopt cryptocurrency. And I can't wait to go to Toronto to go network with these people. If you see me on Facebook, if you don't like me, you're going to be hating. Thank you.
Hello, friends. Mark from Grand Rapids. CDC number 1, the resolution approving the fireworks discharge for our prize. I could care less about the fireworks discharge. I want to talk about our prize itself. I think now is the time, since there's no more festival, I think you should move our prize to June. You don't have to worry about going head-to-head with football. The weather will be a lot warmer. More people will show up. That's what I suggest. I think it's more convenient that way. You know, you don't have to worry about the weather turning into the seasons turning. And I believe that it should work. You don't have to worry about, it won't be, besides, nothing is going to be going on during that time anyway. So it's the right time to move it. I suggest you think about this. And if you don't want to move it, that's fine, but I think it's better to be in June than in September. You know, that's how I feel. I don't know if you feel that way, but that's how I feel. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment on agenda items, that brings us to approval of our minutes from our last meeting. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes from 4:29 are approved. And can I have a motion to approve the minutes from 5:06?
So moved. Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved. That brings us to petitions and communications. Mr. Clerk.
Communication received from John Miller regarding his resignation from the North Quarter Corridor Improvement Authority.
Referred to committee on appointments.
Communication received from Deborah Nineheis regarding her resignation from the Mobile GR Commission.
Referred to committee on appointments.
Communication received from Allison McCauley Together, West Michigan organizer regarding voting precinct changes and voting access.
Received and filed.
Communications, 8 of them, received expressing concerns for the proposed climate action adaptation plan.
Received and filed.
Communication from Daniel Sharma Hamadi expressing opposition to the special land use permit requested by Matthews House.
Received and filed.
Communication received from Martin Ushendu regarding his resignation from the Economic Development Corporation, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, and Grand Rapids Land Bank Authority.
Referred to committee on appointments.
Communication received from Brooke Osterman regarding her resignation from the Economic Development Corporation, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, and the Grand Rapids Land Bank Authority.
Referred to committee on appointments.
And communication received from Chet Felkowski regarding their experience with the bias from the Rapid.
Received and filed. That brings us to reports of city officers.
The first one's a comptroller's warrant report for the period of April 15, 2025 through April 28, 2025 in the amount of $29,701,189.85.
Received and filed.
Treasurer's report for period of April 17, 2025 through April 29, 2025.
Received and filed.
And a change in date for approval of Neighborhood Investment Plan funding awards and submission of the fiscal year 2026 annual action plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Received and filed. This brings us to our consent agenda for the audience's illumination. This is items which passed unanimously through our various committees. You can see those in our agenda, but I would ask for a motion to approve our consent agenda items.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And that brings us to ordinances to be adopted.
The first one's an ordinance amending Section 1 of the Budget Ordinance 2024-2023 for fiscal year 2025, Amendment Number 8.
Commissioner Robbins.
I'll get a motion first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Support. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. This item came before us this morning at fiscal. There was probably more items on it as typical, but our acting CFO explained to us that with the implementation of Oracle ERP, the finance module, there was somewhat of a pause as that was going live to allow for a smooth transition. So playing a little catch up with those. In total, there's 19 items on it. Rather than go through all of them all at once, we did get a pretty good brief overview on what each of them are for this morning, so I'd highly encourage people to go check that out if they're curious. Otherwise, you can read about each of them in the agenda packet.
Thank you. This is a roll call vote, so City Clerk,
Is there any discussion?
is there any discussion?
I just, early this morning, just commented on the particular ordinance that was on there for the extra staff that they were adding into the budget. And I believe when that item came before us before, I voted no on that. And so we'll be voting no on that again for tonight.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. Clerk, if you'd take the vote. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have a motion. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, we had a motion.
We have a motion. Okay, so if you could call the roll.
Commissioner Robbins,
Yes.
Commissioner Purdue,
Yes.
Commissioner Knight,
No.
Commissioner Belcheck,
Yes.
Commissioner Asasi, Mayor LaGrand.
Yes. Motion carries.
Motion for immediate effect.
Can I ask for a motion for immediate effect?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to public hearings, having no city commission resolutions tonight. And Mr. Sandin is,
I'll take it, Mayor.
okay, great.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners and members of the public for being here. The first public hearing is to introduce comments, allow comments for the proposed tax rate. As you may be aware, we have been discussing the overall city's budget since introduction on April 29th and established this hearing on the 13th to hear comments from the public. The tax rate the millage rate is proposed at 8.8587, which is a reduction from the 25 authorization. And you'll see there on the slide, the overall operating budget, $735 million, but the general operating fund at roughly $196 million. I won't go into a lot of detail because we have spent a lot of time on some of the things relative to the budget, but I'll just highlight just different areas of how the money is spent. You'll see the 6 strategic priorities over approximately 180 million in governmental excellence, 15.8 million with an additional 35 million for corridor improvement districts, and we had that briefing this morning, along with you'll see the largest portion of the budget, $240 million in health and environment for our parks, green space, water. And you'll see the investments in safe community and mobility. I do want to highlight that there are approximately $36 million in investments that advance equity, and we continue to reinforce our core values. So with that, Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you, and so we might be able to hear from the public.
And thank you. Anyone from the public who wants to make comment on this as anyone's coming up, I will note for viewers at home and those in the audience that we have received detailed briefings, and our communications team is doing a great job of archiving video of all this. So if you have questions about any of the budget topics that are encased in this hearing, we've had briefings on those, and you can go back and take a look. This is not the final point for our budget. It's just the next step. Our final adoption is anticipated to be on the 20th.
I'm good?
Yep.
All right, for sure. How y'all doing? I'm D. Jones again. I actually want to speak on the safe community. You guys investing like 9 figures in the safe community. I'm very proud of that. Just because I'm partnering with you guys on the summer initiative. I've already had Epic Games, $32 billion company to educate the public school system, and they have lesson plans and curricula that I'm working with the school district, which I've connected the director of curricula of GRPS to Epic Games, and they're actually working to get that curricula to our schools, which would be a very beautiful thing, enhance our district, beautify education, also use Fortnite and the Unreal Engine, a beautiful, cool game that I love, that I play here at City Hall as I bring my PS5 here now. It's pretty cool to play my game in here at City City Hall. But I'm thankful for the partnership, for you guys investing into the stuff I'm doing, because not only do I have some of the best colleges and university in the nation that are going to be educating kids in the underserved communities, all backgrounds all across Kent County on shoutcasting, streaming, game design, cryptocurrency, name, image, and likeness. All of these things. It's equitable, it's accessible, it's free to all of the students 10 plus and up. I don't discriminate. I don't hate anyone. I'm just trying to offer the best equitable, equal opportunity, because at times of uncertainty, having a president that does not care about the citizens and people that need to step up and lead in the digital space, D. Jones is definitely leading and pioneering, and very thankful that the city is taking the time to invest into the vision, because I've been coming here for 7 years consistently. I don't think I've missed probably under like 20 city commissions, but I've like really been here very, very vocal, regardless of how bad it is or how good it is. I show up, and I believe that's why I'm in a position I have. I never kissed any of you guys as Heine. I'm just always authentically been me, unapologetically, and just being authentic and true to who I am, because that's how I am. I'm true everywhere, regardless of the space that I am. I am true to who D. Jones is at the core of the soul, which is just a very genuine, authentic person that will hold people accountable. But I'm just so thankful that we're being able to partner with the city, in the school district, in Epic Games, and all of these colleges and universities to really give back to the community, because it's needed. It's never been done here, and I'm going to put the best positive energy and love and everything that I have into this to get the best effects. And I haven't even done all of the TV interviews and stuff like that yet. So I'm excited, because I'm going to have my Cartiers on. I'll probably have a haircut again so the city can see me shining as I speak eloquently. I don't even write this stuff down. I just speak to y'all from the heart, because I feel like that's the best thing you should do to people, is speak from the heart. I don't type anything. I don't write anything. I just come speak to everybody. So all of the cool speeches that I've given, I've never wrote those down, but I'm very happy to be able to partner with the city and that we're making the community safer, because the police wants the community to be safe. The community wants the community safe. I like the community to be safe, and I'm pretty sure all you guys want the community to be safe, and that's why you guys are investing to the stuff that I'm doing. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Commissioners. Max France, City Comptroller, reside in the city of Grand Rapids, of course. I'm here to speak tonight on the proposed fiscal year 2026 city budget. And specifically, I want to speak to the fact that that budget put before you currently does not include funding for one of the most basic functions of a city office in our government. And of course, I'm referring to the City Comptroller Department. In fact, this is probably, I think, the first time that a City Commission has ever been presented with removing millions of dollars of funding and nearly all of the resources from not only one of the smallest and most inexpensive departments in all the city of Grand Rapids, but the one department that is responsible for performing independent accounting for the public in the city of Grand Rapids. That is the department in this budget that we are proposing to remove millions of dollars from. I actually want to read something that I just read this week as it pertains to events, I guess someone would say turmoil, shuffling of money, unnecessary cuts and eliminations going on in the federal government. This is actually a quote from a high-level CDC official. This person said that the idea that you can have a program with no people in it and no money in it, and that somehow then you have not eliminated that, is just smoke and mirrors. And that's what we are looking at here, City Commissioners. I requested a minimum of 14 FTEs in positions in the City Comptroller's office this year that have historically been appropriated to the City Comptroller's Department that require no additional outside funding. The money is already there, and I am asking you to not approve a budget that eliminates these resources from the City Comptroller office, but also is eliminating crucial checks and balances in our city government that our public depends upon. I sincerely want to thank each of you as elected officials for stepping into these roles. I know they're tough. I appreciate your service to your neighborhoods, our city, and I am calling upon you to please not eliminate this funding from the Office of the City Comptroller. Please stand and uphold the public's checks and balances in our government. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Shannon Tanis, and I'm displaced out of the First Ward. I would like to comment on the public hearing about the budget and go off of what Max just stated. Max did some work when I brought to his attention that the city was unlawfully collecting parking fees for free holidays. And this action that has been done to take his resources away was after the fact. Quite frankly, is highly suspicious as retaliatory aspect, okay? When you pull our ability to have oversight and accountability away from the person that is delegated in that authority, it just seems like another tactic for the city to divert and try to disillusion the fraud, waste, and abuse that's going on. I've spoken to you guys many, many times about fiduciary responsibilities and the many, many deficiencies that have been going on across multiple budget topics, housing, which lead to deprivation of rights. I told you that I was going to hold you accountable. Well, I have a federal attorney now. He's well aware of how much I have been deprived of my rights, and others too, regarding the patterns and practices that impact all of us. I recently went to DC. I spoke to HUD OIG. I also have talked to Michigan Civil Rights Department. There are many investigations going at this time regarding a lot of things. So we're at the FAFO period. So, and accountability. I told you, I asked you to properly engage. And Mr. LeGrand, I've tried to engage you over the years quite a few times regarding unlawful foreclosures, and while you were a representative, while you were on the county commission board, and now here as mayor hopping around. So, it's kind of funny how you guys all line right back up to liability where you first started from to here, you know, and it's all the same issues. So I just wanted to give you notice, and I hope you start doing the right thing and stop pulling away from our person that seems to be the only one that wants to stand up and hold accountability to our officials. So, thank you.
Hello, my name is Oak. I'm hoping I'm becoming a familiar face. I hope I'm not dreaded. It's nice to see you all. Kind of in regards to that, regarding like parking tickets as well, and their role in the budget. When you get a parking ticket, if you pay within the first 24 hours, it's $20. After that, it's $30, and then after a couple weeks, it's $60. Minimum wage is like $7.25 or something, and that is, so my parking ticket is worth more than like a day of my life.
Ma'am, in the interest of...
That's all.
Okay, that's great. I just wanted to tell you, that was that you probably wanted to speak at the next hearing, but if you want to...
I'm okay.
We heard you, so thanks.
Just for the public, so this is on the general operating budget. The next hearing is on revenue and fees.
Correct, thank you.
Hello, Russell Olmsted, West Side, Grand Rapids. Regarding the budget, I just wanted to bring up one point, and perhaps it's been discussed or allotted someplace in it that I am not familiar with, and my apologies if that is the case. But I know that I voiced this in past years around budget as well. I believe that there should be money set aside for assistance for commissioners. I think that the job that the commissioners are doing in order to have effective representation needs to have some sort of help and engagement to ensure that we can engage properly as commissioners to the community. And I think it's can be somewhat overwhelming as far as a position without having some sort of assistance there for communications to make sure effective communications are done properly, engagement with community members, and I think it could affect in allowing commissioners to have better help in understanding also some of the things that are coming to you from a very large budget package through all sorts of different things. Having dedicated resources to help community members who are coming on this board, coming on the commission that are elected from the community, helping and engage in those processes, I think would be extremely helpful. And as I said, I don't know if this has already been discussed and allotted inside of the budget. If it has, fantastic. If not, I really hope that you consider it. So thank you.
Thank you. I think that ends the people I see for public comment on this, so I'm going to close this hearing, and that brings us to our next hearing. And City Manager, if you want to summarize our purpose on this.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. This hearing is for the consideration of fiscal year 26 service provision fees that will be effective January 1. And we have highlighted previously for the commission in establishing this hearing over 1,200 fees, the majority of which remain unchanged. And there are some that are adjusted for cost of living. And so when you look at the total fees, about 80% are either unchanged and adjusted for cost of living. The others are adjusted because of the cost of service. And there's been a very detailed list of all the provisions. You had robust discussion among this commission. There's been discussion of modification for some of the recommended increases on parking fines that will be finally deliberated and voted on after this public hearing.
Thank you. Open this up for questions or comments from the public. And while I do that, let me point out that in Michigan, fees cannot exceed the cost of actually providing the service. And so that's an interesting principle in Michigan. So we're constantly doing analysis of how much it costs the city to provide services that we ask a fee for.
How you doing, D. Jones? Back again for the third time. It's the charm. I'm here to speak about y'all city fees, and as we know, I spoke a couple times ago, Detroit has actually adopted cryptocurrency, and in July or June, they'll actually be able to use cryptocurrency to pay for city fees. As you guys know, as I said, Bitcoin is now 104,000 a coin. There's other cryptos like Solana and Ethereum and all of these other cryptocurrencies. I don't see the reason why we can't adopt cryptocurrency for our city to pay for our city fees. If somebody gets lucky, like we have PFT, Playfuel token, which D. Jones is pioneering, going to be going to Toronto, Canada, where Eric Trump, BlackRock, and Bo Hines is going to be there. As I leave here, as I leave from City Hall, I'm going to go to Detroit, and then I'll be going to Canada, like literally. So I don't see why we can't adopt this. I don't see why we can't adopt cryptocurrency for the betterment of our community without increasing taxes. You guys can get the tax revenues from that. You guys will actually, from the blockchain technologies that decreases fraud, you guys can be able to get those funds. I'd rather be paying with my cryptocurrency, as I know the value is going to be going up. If one coin from the Playfuel token is 100,000, which I know in the future is going to be, it'll be easier to pay my city fees. Like one day I was at a protest, going to go protest with the people, standing up with the people across the street at this other soccer stadium, and I got a parking ticket from GRPD. It was $40, and then I tried to come up here to the city place, and I tried to pay for my parking ticket, and they was like, no, it's not in the system. GRPD has a different system. Y'all need to change that system, because if I get a parking ticket from GRPD, I can't even come here to the city and even pay for that. But if you guys adopted crypto, I can use cryptocurrency to pay for that parking ticket that GRPD gave me. That'd be a cool thing to do, because it's digital finance, and the Republicans and Donald Trump and everybody is getting richer and richer, and we live in the second worst city for economics for African Americans, and I'm an African American that's pioneering, that's doing good work just like you, David. I do beautiful things for the community too. I'd be a great politician too, but I'm asking you guys to adopt cryptocurrency because I know what it could do for our community. You guys can get free tax revenues and attract different companies, tech companies. You want at least 10% of our region by 2030 to be tech jobs. We can have cryptocurrency jobs. We can have people all across the globe coming here having jobs, and then we can adopt cryptocurrency so people can pay their city fees, their water bill, their light bills, they parking tickets from GRPD. Who likes parking tickets from GRPD? I don't like parking tickets from GRPD. All of my insurance and everything is legal. I don't get pulled over, but I hate parking tickets. When I park my car to go stand up for the people, and GRPD give me a $40 ticket, and I can use cryptocurrency to pay for that. It's crazy, but you know what I'm saying? Please do it, David. Consider that. Thank you.
Seeing no one else, this brings us to the close of this hearing, and I'm
Mayor,
Yeah.
can I ask a question about the fines and fees before we move on? So we didn't dive too deep into the details during our presentations on the budget, but I did have one question that I wanted to ask publicly. It's a proposed new fee regarding CIA service agreements for administrative services, which is 5%, and proposed fee is 5%. I was wondering if someone could speak a little bit more to that, because I'm not quite clear what that encompasses and what that includes and why. And I see it's a new fee.
Seeing anyone readily get up, Commissioner, we'll have to get back with you on that particular fee. I'll ask our CFO to work with the appropriate department that submitted and find out the reason for the submission.
Thank you.
So that closes this hearing. I will refer that to committee of the whole.
Mayor, I also want to add on the comment on the pay it. Our treasurer is here to assist those who need help with the system of GR Pay It if they're unable to do it. So, Mr. Glubinski, thank you for being here. Mr. Jones, if you're still here, you can see him.
Thank you. That brings us to public comments. Anyone who wants to comment on any item that's not on the agenda or that was on the agenda and they changed their minds and want to talk now, now is your moment.
Hello, everyone. I'm D. Jones. After I leave city, after I give this public comment, I'm driving to Detroit, and then I'm going to Canada for this business conference where Bo Hines and Eric Trump and BlackRock will be there. I'll be sure to try to get a front seat so I can actually see these people and look them in the eye if they look me in my eye. But I'm definitely going to be there in Toronto, Canada, for this cryptocurrency event, and I definitely love David, our Mayor LeGrand, the good justice champion that does cannabis expungements and different expungements for the community. I love you to adopt cryptocurrency, David. I'm going to keep being on you about this as I be on the DeVosses about our taxes and the Van Andels about our taxes and at the events and letting them know that they need to do esports events at the soccer stadium and how they need to invest in the publication. Or how I drove up to the State House where Tim Kelly is the chair of the Education and Aid Committee, and I told them that they need to invest in the public education. Or how I drove to the Saudi export event and got somebody who works for the actual Saudi prince, and they have 9 green energy factories, and they have these nice non-alcoholic drinks, David, that I put the hood on, and that they love those nice drinks from the distiller. And I think that you guys should get those all across the globe to build some economic power, David. That'd be a cool thing if you adopt cryptocurrency for the community, because that'd be a beautiful thing. I also would like to speak on this Leoya thing, because I was been bold, and I've been my cousin got killed by the state police. I don't get the same sympathy as the people from the Leoyas or everybody else. I get attacked for standing up for the people. I don't even speak to people. I just go to events and I get attacked. But I don't get the same love, even though my cousin was executed by a state police officer in Chicago, Illinois, where D. Jones is from. I'm going to continuously say that the people that had the Proud Boys, the guy Jeffrey that's here, I said, "What's up, Jeffrey? I don't have no issue with you. I do have an issue with the Proud Boys hoodie you had on and the racial discrimination and the racism that black people and people of color and white people and poor white communities deal with. They even get discriminated against if they're not rich enough. So I want you guys to know that I'm not apologizing for anything, for cursing y'all out, for yelling passionately. I'm not apologizing for nothing, because black people and people are tired. The community is tired. Even some police officers are tired of bad policing, because nobody wants to work for GRPD because of the shooting. They seen that all across the globe. Nobody want to work for y'all because of that police shooting. But I'm going to be doing the best that I can to work with the good police officers in the community to do what's best for the community, as I have a $10,000 budget from the Office of Public and Oversight and Public Accountability to develop the summer initiative and reduce violence and create economic boosts, and obviously having cryptocurrency, which I'm going to bring the value up to enrich our community, the black youth, the white youth, the people of color. I'm going to do what I can, the best that I can for the community. And David, as I leave and grab my bag and I'm finna go to Detroit and then to Toronto, Canada, please consider using cryptocurrency, because BlackRock 11 trillion. BlackRock 11 trillion. Y'all have a good night.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, commissioners, staff, and neighbors, community. Unfortunately, last week we didn't get the news that we hoped we would receive with the Patrick Lyoya trial. But I did reach out individually to some of you all and let you know that the community was going to come today, and we're going to keep coming to ask you for reforms around GRPD and around policing in general around the city, and the community showed up this evening. Since then, I did see the interview that Chief Winstrom gave to Fox 17, I believe, around some of the changes that have been implemented since the shooting. I want to thank the chief for that. I did take the time to read the policy. Point B1 does state the department's highest priority is the sanctity of human life. I'd like to thank the chief for changing the policy to reflect that. But clearly the policy either has not gone far enough, or the practices within the officers themselves have not changed enough. We're going to be asking, or at least I am going to be asking for you all to focus, or for the department to focus on 3 specific changes, and I'll get to those in a second. One of those, though, is around the use of force, or the use of deadly force. And point E4 in that policy for the GRPD department, it says a deadly force encounter is highly stressful and evolves rapidly. A verbal warning shall be given prior to the use of deadly force when feasible. And that is one of the things that I think we need to change. I think that anytime an officer is about to use deadly force, they should be able to warn, or they should be warning people that they're about to be shot. Now, obviously, there are some circumstances where an officer couldn't have foreseen that somebody was about to attack them. If somebody pulls a gun on them, for example, they're probably not going to have the time to give them a warning. But I would argue that in most cases, they do. They do have the time to give somebody a warning. And further, they can shoot somebody in the leg or shoot somebody in an arm so that they're not taking a life in that exact moment. One of the examples that comes to mind is the gentleman that was killed by GRPD, I'm forgetting his name, when he was going through a mental health event and he had a knife, I believe. I don't see any reason why that person should have been shot to death. I really don't. Another thing that we learned during the Patrick Lyoya trial is that there is not a policy, as far as I know, around officers engaging in foot chases, especially when they're doing so by themselves. If Sher had taken the time to, instead of chasing Patrick by himself, processed the passenger who was in that vehicle and processed that vehicle, Patrick would probably still be here today. And the last thing that I want to ask for is complete community control of the police. I want to thank Commissioner Perdue for asking that question during today's morning meeting to the head of the Office of OPA around any possible changes that will be moving forward. But we don't need to wait until the trial is done. You all know what needs to change, and that work can begin now. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Micah. I'm a community member. I'm going to be speaking on the Patrick Lyoya case and policing in general in the city. To be frank, the police are completely out of control. They have no discipline. They are violent. They are reckless. And they're going to cause you a lot of unnecessary problems if you don't start listening to the community, especially for calls for community control of the police. As of right now, the police have no accountability. And unfortunately, over the past week, the case involving Christopher Scher has only proven that. Christopher Scher is a murderer. He murdered a man in the street. He executed him. He shot him in the back of the head while he was defenseless and on the ground. That's ridiculous. We cannot have a militarized police force that thinks that they are allowed to use force in that way. I don't care what any of your opinions are. It was murder. Everybody's seen the video. The public knows that it's murder. The community knows that it's murder. It was very disappointing that the trial was declared a mistrial, But we hope that we can work with you so that we can actually try Christopher Schur and bring him to justice for the murder of Patrick Lyoya. Because again, we cannot set this precedent with the police in Grand Rapids, with the violence that is continuing around the country from especially the Trump administration. The funding and militarization of police is dangerous. It's being used to attack our most vulnerable communities and those who speak up for them. I myself am involved in the student movement, and I have been appalled by the repression that I've seen around the country over the past year on said student movement. Continuing to fund and train the GRPD to engage in these violent tactics is going to do no one any good, least of all yourselves. If you think that the community will just shut up and start accepting this violence, you're wrong. You're only going to have more problems on your hands. The more activists that get arrested, the more people that get brutalized, the more Patrick Lyoyas and Samuel Sterlings and Riley Doggetts that happen, you're going to have a bigger and bigger fight in the street. If you want to avoid that, you need to work with the community and not with the police who are completely separate from the community, the police who have no stake in the community, the police who are a bunch of violent morons who live for the day that they get to beat up protesters. These guys aren't smart. Don't listen to them. Please listen to your constituents, listen to the community, embrace community control of the police so there can actually be accountability for when these cops commit heinous crimes like murder, like Christopher Schur did to Patrick Lyoya. Thank you.
My name is Ren Burns, Second Ward resident here in Grand Rapids, parent, teacher, community organizer. Been here before, talked to you guys about Palestine. You said you couldn't do things that were symbolic, but I was outside on Thursday with my friends, with my comrades who are here to fight for justice in our very, very close community here. And what I saw, frankly, is some of the most vile behavior from somebody that from a professional in the community that I've ever seen. I saw a man, a police officer, almost flip a man out of a wheelchair for nothing else but losing control of his own anger in that moment. I saw a crowd become agitated when this happened because it was one of the most horrific things. I never have thought I would ever see the day to see somebody attacked that way and assaulted by a police officer for literally just being inconveniently in the wrong place. I watched the disorganization of a multi-department effort of over 50 police officers between the Michigan State Police, the Wyoming Police Department, and Grand Rapids Police Department fail to communicate and organize together, tell that person in a wheelchair to go 3 different directions and then almost slip him out into the pavement. And there is no excuse for that. And all of you are responsible because you are responsible for Chris Becker. And you are responsible for that jury being fair. I see you in front of me and I see how fair the city can be when the people vote. I see the vote in front of me, and that was not the jury. That was not a fair trial. And I'm glad it was a mistrial, because if that had been a not guilty, that people would be a lot more mad right now. And you know that that's not a good thing. But I'm pretty friggin' mad. I'm trying not to swear because I don't want to get my microphone turned off. But seriously, I didn't know what I was going to come up here to say, except for that it was, you should, if you're not ashamed of the behavior of the Grand Rapids Police Department, then you're not paying attention. I was pulled out of my car the other night for an infraction I was unaware of by 4 police officers at 1 o'clock in the morning. I was assaulted by the Grand Rapids Police Department with no prior knowledge that there was an issue with my driver's license. That is normal Grand Rapids Police Department behavior. Now imagine what they do to my black neighbors. Now imagine what happens when it's happened more than once to my neighbors when they have had their houses searched and torn apart without warrants by the Kent County Sheriff Department. And they all work together. But you're responsible for the Grand Rapids Police Department. And so expect to hear us come here again and again and again until this is taken care of, until there's true community control of the police, and until there's true justice for the Lyoya family. Thank you.
Al Fruit, Grand Rapids. The other day, last Saturday, I had a wonderful wake-up call, compliments of the Riverbank Run. They decided to play the drums at the west end of the Blue Bridge at 7 a.m. It was loud and it woke me up. And I just can't wait for the amphitheater to be playing at 11 o'clock at night when I'm trying to sleep. Second, parking signage. You have a number of parking ramps, city ramps, across from the arena on Ionia and Fulton. But yet all the incoming streets coming into Grand Rapids, there is not one sign that tells people how to go to a parking ramp. We have 10,000 plus coming into the amphitheater. You've got a soccer arena coming in. You've got the Van Andel Arena. No signage directing people how to get to parking. And I use Fulton and Division as an example. If you're coming in from the north side and coming down Division, you have no idea where the Fulton parking or the Ionia parking ramps are. Little signage would be a good thing. Help. Why wait until the arena comes in? Next, traffic light, Campow and Pearl Street by the Amway going west. If you're stuck at that traffic light, it's 11 seconds green. By the time people walk across that street from the Amway, one car turns left. You need to fix that problem for those of us who live there. Lastly, talking about parking tickets earlier, I had the privilege of getting a loading zone parking ticket last year. And I fought the ticket. And the reason I fought it is because the loading zone signs do not specify when the loading zone is in effect or how many minutes you have for parking there in a loading zone. So I fought it. Had a wonderful magistrate. Found me guilty, but he asked me a question. He says, have you talked to the city commission about changing the signage on that so people know how long they can park? And I said, yeah, I have. And he said, what was the answer? I said, that's why I'm here. Nothing was done. Let people know that if you're in a loading zone, you get 15 minutes. Don't put a sign up there that says loading zone and then people get a parking ticket and they have no idea why. So I fought it. I lost it, but he waived the fee. Great magistrate. Should go over to the city across the street and talk to the people over there. So I am.
My name is Haley Hentz. I'm a student at Grand Valley State University. As a community organizer and, resident of this area for the past couple years, Patrick Lyoya's murder has been a large part of the fabric of the city since 2022. In multiple of my classes at GVSU, Patrick's name has come up. In my own personal activism experiences, Patrick's murder has loomed large. And while it happened 3 years ago, a couple months before I even came up here to study, it was always something still happening in the here and now. It was still happening because the Lyoya family had received no justice, and the community and his family were lost in appeal after appeal by Schur's defense. Then it was finally time to address Patrick's murder and the actions of the Grand Rapids Police Department in court. We all knew this wasn't just like an isolated incident that exists within the property boundaries of Kent County, the killing that is inherent to the system of policing in every geographic area of the U.S. But this trial came and went with no justice having been given to the Lyoya family, and it upsets me that a jury can be inconclusive and not running to convict an officer that shot a man in the back of the head while he was face down on the ground. As I said, the murder of Patrick Lyoya is alive in the streets when protesters march, in classrooms across the area, and people's minds when they even just think about the city. And it is the responsibility of this city and Prosecutor Becker to retry the case and ultimately convict Schur. While the case is always going to be, alive in people's hearts and in the reputation of GRPD, giving justice to the Lyoya family is the least that can be done. Thank you.
Hello. I'm Hannah McCardle. I live in the 2nd Ward. I am a parent of GRPS students. I am an activist. I am a community member, active in my community. And I'm here today to ask you to make sure that charges are refiled against the murderer, Christopher Schur. Police actions like this have been increasing, yet you seem to have not called for those perpetrating them to face consequences. I'm extremely disturbed by the lack of oversight of the GRPD. I've witnessed a number of instances where they have escalated peaceful protests. They consistently view local activists as their enemy, and they scrape together charges to harass them and intimidate them. In the last week alone, we have seen them, particularly P. Mart, Daryl Holland, and Don Allen, manhandle a person with disabilities, injure him, and arrest his caregiver. We have seen them shoot foreign objects in the faces of unarmed protesters with no provocation. And we have heard their threats that they will increase their violence with no concern for consequences. Currently, our right to free speech has been repeatedly threatened, and you are failing all of us. As this entire nation is limiting free speech in every way it can nationally, it is your job to protect this right at a local level. It is your job to oversee these terrifying police actions, and in that you have been failing Grand Rapidians for years.
My name is John. I didn't know how a mistrial in the Patrick Lyoya case would feel, but it feels horrible. I went to the courthouse every day to sit with Patrick's family and feel the horrible pain of injustice over and over. The lawyers for the cop who killed Patrick brought witness after witness to say Patrick deserved to be shot in the back of the head. Sitting in the courtroom was like sitting in hell. But I devote my life to nonviolence, and I know Patrick was nonviolent that day. The officer pushed Patrick down and shot him in the back of the head. I went home, and I got on my hands and knees, and I held a stick of deodorant in my hand, and I tried to drop it. Go home and try. It was impossible to drop the taser with the officer pushing on his back. Impossible. Patrick was killed for not doing the impossible. It was clear that Officer Scher was trained to do that, to escalate, set a record for escalating a peaceful event to a murder in record time. The GRPD is pushing down, holding down the heads of everybody black in Grand Rapids, period. The civil rights movement never stopped moving. Those marches are still marching. Those equal rights arrived on paper only. This city has black civil rights leaders, Allie the activist, Erica Cage, Kai Price Sanders, even Robert Womack, who's an elected official. Robert Womack with his suit and hat at the Kent County Courthouse is like a black and white photo from 1965 come to life. We still live in the old black and white days of racism and oppression. If Womack can stand up and take a side, so can all of you. Go on the record that Patrick's murder makes you feel sick. And you're feeling the pain. Show us your raw pain and show up for the family to hold their pain with them. The police are abusers. The police abuse Patrick. They abuse Patrick's protesters. They abuse our leaders like Kai Price Sanders. 4 peaceful protesters were arrested during the trial. You paid for the police to spray peaceful protesters. You paid for Officer Howard to yank around a person using a wheelchair and arrest their support worker. GRPD uses violent tactics to silence protesters, scare protesters, and motivate protesters to stay home. That's unethical, that's unconstitutional, it's evil, and you're paying them. Black Lives Matter, justice for Patrick Lyoya, justice for Samuel Sterling, justice for Riley Doggett, justice for Hank Weimer, justice for Joey Nagel, justice for all stolen lives. Free Palestine, drop all charges against Kai Price Sanders. You can't stop the revolution. Tomorrow at 6, I know of 2 events related to Patrick Lyoya. There's a meet and greet on Eastern with his family. There's an NAACP listening session. You're all invited. We've got to connect the mourning community to the community that's supposed to be serving us. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Reverend Greta Jo Seidel. I'm a Unitarian Universalist minister and a member of the Grand Rapids community. I want to urge the city to push the county prosecutor's office to retry the case of Patrick Lyoya's killing and to take radical steps to reform public safety in our community so that as the rise of fascism occurs in our country, Grand Rapids can continue to try and call itself a democracy with all the rights that come with it. The city understands the importance of this trial and the weight of justice undone. I say that the city understands because the city saw fit to publish a statement recognizing the impact of the mistrial. So while the decision to retry might fall with the Kent County Prosecutor's Office, the city, and therefore you as commissioners, have responsibility to recognize Grand Rapids City's role in the killing of Patrick. The police department reports to you. The police department is funded by you. Over the last many years, activists and organizers warned you that action was needed to prevent the death of one of our neighbors, one of our community members. Here we are. Missing from the statement made by the city was how Grand Rapids governance will take responsibility for its role in how we ended up here. How the city will respond to proof that current policing policies end in death. Whether the court calls it murder or manslaughter or mistrial, it is still death. Patrick is still dead because of a member of the Grand Rapids Police Department. And that's not just a governance failing, but a moral one. I was raised in the Christian tradition and have devoted my life to religion, and from a very young age, I could quote the 10 Commandments. I bet some of you can too. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not kill with no caveats, no qualifiers, no justifications, no policies that make it okay. Any law or policy or practice that is used to justify the death of a neighbor is broken and immoral. Any policy that seeks to put the city police officers, the state police officers, above the commandments of God is wrong. And if you do not have the courage to say that or to act upon it, I do, and we do. So it may not be your decision to retry, but as members of the city government, it is within your power to change policies so that we don't have to come back here again and again with another name on our broken hearts and our tired lips. Because if something doesn't change, we will, again and again. Thou shalt not kill. Justice for Patrick.
Hi, my name is Peter Berdo. I'm a student at Grand Valley State University, and I'm here to demand a retrial for Christopher Schur. To me, there is no reason why a police officer should shoot a man in the back of the head, and 3 years later, there's still no justice. That doesn't make sense to me. If he was white, what do you think would have happened? If he was white, that cop would be in prison. Justice for Patrick and Hank.
Hi. I'm going to start with a joke. I'm sure many of you probably recognize my face. I was downtown outside the courthouse. If I was really angry at any of the police, it isn't about you as a person. It is about the job that you're choosing and the system it's within. And so I'm sorry if anyone has been upset or angry or hasn't cared. I'm most sorry if it's that. But my joke is, I was told that I was racist against cops. I appreciate one laugh. It's okay you didn't, though. It's not a joke, actually. That really happened. I was told I was racist against cops. Because we were like, hey, you're... Okay. We were told we were violent, while a line of 10 white police with tasers that if I touch, I'm a felon and can be executed, and guns that could kill me if I was pinned down, and a dog stood behind them. Violence needs to be redefined. If someone is holding a gun or their friend is holding a gun at me and I'm angry because of something they did and they say, you're being violent, hint, I'll shoot you if you don't do what I want. Who is violent there? Pardon? Yeah. Also, side note before I forget, David, I found something that you said about restorative justice, I think that's a beautiful idea. I do not think we see that, and I wonder what you think of that. I want to read the 13th Amendment. I didn't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. It's not because I don't care about the country. I wouldn't be here. If that was the case, I would have left. I wanted to leave really badly, but I have family here. The 13th Amendment reads, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, where the party shall have been convicted, who makes the laws, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. In the coming weeks, you may see less of us in this room. I don't think it will be because we have given up. It will be because we were saying something that people did not want to hear. I called my dad to apologize for doing this, as my family has asked me to not speak on these things sometimes, but I think since more recently they're okay with it. And thank you to the news for being here. Please, I know it can be boring, but this is really important. I'm not saying don't look, I know you're taking notes. I'm just saying I know work can be boring. And my last thing, I know I'm over time, but it's a pretty line and I'm a poet. If my anger will be viewed as violence, then you will see my sorrow.
Mayor, I just want to call attention. I think John tried to get your attention of some comments being made while folks were giving their public comments up here. So just want to remind folks to attend to the rules and no derogatory comments or comments towards our speakers.
Yeah, and I think, John, you got the memo, right? We're good?
He was trying to get your attention quietly.
Well, okay. Okay. Got it. All right. So just as a general reminder, everybody, please be respectful of each other, whether you disagree with each other or not. This is a public forum, and people have a right to be heard without being overridden by chaos. Like, that's a really important part of free speech.
Good evening, City Commission members. My name is James O, and I'm here to speak on the trial of Officer Christopher Scher. It's going to start off a little bit in a niche topic within that, but then hopefully going to cover it as a whole. During the protests surrounding this trial, as well as right here in this City Commission meeting, we endure the presence of the Proud Boys, a far-right, neo-fascist militant group that promotes and engages in violence. They're labeled a terrorist organization in 2 countries, participated in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, and have many ongoing internal ties to other white supremacist organizations. They're also standing in clear support of Christopher Scher, as they have systematically done in many other cases of police officers who have engaged in violence against people of color. It's not a coincidence that we're seeing organizations like this showing up in the midst of a legal process in Grand Rapids. This is the direct result of our police department operating without proper structures of oversight by and cooperation with the communities they're supposed to serve. This issue is not a personal one at the level of any particular police officer. For better or worse, I still think that most people who become police officers do so because they want to serve their communities and keep those communities safe. The real issue is that the systems in place to guide, train, and oversee police officers do not effectively ensure that all police officers do and can keep their communities safe consistently. They don't ensure that the voices of the community have a tangible effect on the conduct of our police department. Like many groups of individuals given unique positions of power and authority, it is impossible for police officers to serve communities effectively without working directly with those communities to determine how to conduct their work. The issue here lies in the fact that there are not effective structures in place to make sure that police officers can protect and serve communities like they are intended to. We know that these effective structures are not in place because otherwise Patrick Lyoya would probably be alive today. And if he wouldn't be regardless, then the trial and events surrounding it would at least be handled much more effectively without continuing and escalating police abuse, such as giving whiplash to a man in a wheelchair or throwing people up against their cars outside the courthouse for minor document-related infringements. These are incidents...
Sir, you're at the end of your 3 minutes. If you could wrap it up.
Okay. The last part of what I was going to say is that proper oversight of police can be achieved through the implementation of civilian offices of police accountability. This has already been done in Chicago, and that was done back in 2016. Since then, they've seen a sharp decrease in police violence.
Thank you.
Hello. Okay. I did not expect to speak today. I just needed to also speak on how, at this point, GRPD is being held less accountable than an average citizen. The amount of people this past week I have seen with their hands up as the cops were pushing against them with bicycles and were sprayed with baby powder, I guess. I'm not even totally sure. And maced and just everything, pulled in their wheelchairs. We tried to get for the caretaker of the person in the wheelchair, like there was someone who was arrested who needed insulin, and we were trying to give the officer their bag, and the officer went, "I need to ask if I can do that." And we're at a point where it really feels like they have no idea what they're doing, and they're being so incredibly violent. And we need a retrial, and it's sickening. Thank you for your
Could you give us your name, ma'am? I'm sorry, I should have asked that at the front end.
Natalie Smith.
Great, thanks. And you live in the city?
Yes.
Thanks.
My name is Jeff Osborne, and I was at the protest last week, Tuesday and Wednesday, and the mob rushed us, and the cops protected us. I'm part of the SURE group, and I'm getting doxxed. They know where I work, and I just want to thank the boys in blue. And if anything happens to someone like me that wears a shirt like this down here in Grand Rapids and we get attacked, the blood's on your hands. Stand with SURE.
My name is Shannon. I live in the 3rd Ward. Firstly, I'd like to let the commissioner know that the previous commenter stated on Facebook that he's from Rockford, and I would like to think that he doesn't represent the views of the majority of the citizens of Grand Rapids. Secondly, I'd like to remind the commission that the immigrants in the city have asked for Grand Rapids to be declared a sanctuary city, and that the police should be prohibited from interacting with ICE. They've been asking this for several months, and I can't think of why the city would not do this, except possibly being afraid of losing funding. And considering that the city is contributing city funds to privately owned construction ventures of the arena and the amphitheater, I believe, even though I know that that was not this mayor and not this commission, I believe that the city as an entity has lost any right to complain about funding. This also applies to the climate change action plan. There have been many complaints about this being too ambitious and too expensive. However, nothing in that plan would be more expensive than damage control after some sort of weather-related disaster. For instance, the flood of 2013 was called a 100-year flood, and it was. However, these will be happening much more frequently than every 100 years. And so I think that the items in the action plan are by far cheaper than not doing anything. Also, I'd like to echo all of the previous comments about the violence of the Grand Rapids police. And I think that one thing that the news coverage of the Schur trial has made evident is something that Black activists have been saying in this city for years, and that is that the training that the Grand Rapids Police go through is inherently, fundamentally wrong or flawed or something. Numerous experts or character witnesses, basically anyone on the police force or training the police force, multiple witnesses said that what Schur did was reasonable, or that he was following his training, and that anyone else who did that training would also do the same thing. So if the training that the police are going through tell them that it's okay to murder someone simply for resisting arrest, if you can call it that, is just fundamentally wrong. And I think that if the commission and the mayor and the city manager have no power to change those policies and do an investigation or an overhaul of the training, then I think that that is even more evidence that we need community control of the police. Thank you for your time.
Hello. My name is August. I am a member of the community. I am a LGBTQ mental health therapist, and I am the vice president of the Grand Rapids Board of Directors. I come here today to speak about the Patrick Lyoya case. We stood outside of the courthouse demanding justice for his family, while others pointed and laughed at us, sort of like what they're doing in the back of this room. They were doing at the courthouse as well. And just like police officers, I call them bullies. We sat there and we welcomed Patrick's family and his crying mother, and we chanted justice for Patrick as they left with no accountability for the individual who murdered him. They went home with no son. They went home with a missing piece of their family, as there would never be accountability or justice for that family. His kids no longer have a father. His brother is no longer a brother. So remember, when you laugh in the back of this room as we cry for the Patrick Lyoya family, you should be ashamed of yourself as you're sitting with your children. You are lucky
Sir,
to be sitting with your children.
please address the commission, okay? That's one of our other rules.
Well, then address the people when they act out, please. And also, I would like for you to start addressing individuals as just excuse me instead of assuming people's gender. You've called multiple people ma'am and sir without any acknowledgement of them claiming that. Something you should work on. Please don't smirk. There is no accountability within this commission, it seems. And for you to smirk as I ask for you to just have some consideration shows that we will never have accountability with white people in office. I say that as a white person. Keep laughing. Address them at some point, sir, or we will. Justice for Patrick.
How y'all doing today? My wife thought it would be prudent that I write this down, so all right, here we go. I would like to start off by sending my condolences to Patrick's family, and I stand with the community in calling for the retrial of Christopher Schur for the murder of Patrick Lyoya. We demand justice for Patrick, but I am also here to demand justice for myself. Approximately 2 years after the murder of Patrick, the people of Grand Rapids were out protesting as they should have been, and I was at work fueling the Rapid City buses. After my shift, I left for work and went straight home. On my way home, I was racially profiled, stalked home from Franklin and Kalamazoo to Bemis and Giddings without any lights. I was ultimately assaulted by several officers of the Grand Rapids Police Department. They punched me, twisted my fingers, bent my arms, pulled my locks out. So much excessive force. I was knocked out and pulled from my car and dogpiled upon. They put their knees on the back of my neck, using a neck restraint, restricting my ability to breathe, all while I screamed that I couldn't breathe. While handcuffed, I received more abuse and excessive force from the Grand Rapids Police Department. They said that I had a bench warrant for unpaid medical bills, but it was dismissed the same day because I was in good standing with the court. I was wrongfully charged for a CCW for a fishing knife, which was dismissed because it was no probable cause. It was a fishing knife. And I was charged with assaulting, resisting, and obstructing a police officer. It took me 8 months to have a trial by jury, but in December, I actually had the same judge as Judge Elmore as Christopher Scher, but I was found not guilty on all charges by all jury members. Though the threat of prison is no longer over my head, I've had to deal with physical therapy for over a year due to my injuries. I now suffer from mild cervical spinal stenosis, and I take several medications for my constant pain. I was diagnosed with PTSD, and I went through several months of therapy for that. I lost my job and my raise and my bonus. Even after I was found not guilty, I went back to reapply for my job, and I went to the interview. Everything went good, and they did another background check. Even after I was found not guilty, they say that the case is still showing up on my federal background check. So they said that I was ineligible for rehire. And I would like for there to be an investigation into the arrest of my civil rights being violated, and for there to be accountability for the officers who assaulted me, and justice for Patrick. And David, you are like you. I mean, you know me. You know me. You know my story. You know we've met on several different occasions. But I would like. I mean, I'm not rich. I don't have the money, the resources to. I've been getting turned down by law firm after law firm, and I feel like there needs to be some accountability. I was found not guilty on all charges, but I'm still dealing with this, and I haven't got an apology, no type of recourse. It's just like move on.
Brandon Davis is at the back of the room. You might want to talk to him, but also, can you give your name? I'm sorry, I keep...
Lamar Forche.
Thank you, Lamar.
Evening. My name is Joe. I've lived in Grand Rapids for almost 10 years. I don't have anything groundbreaking or new to say that other community members or activists have been saying for years. We are all clearly in grief because Christopher Scher was not held accountable for the murder of Patrick Lyoya. And we will not forget. We will not stop asking for accountability. We will not stop standing with Patrick's family. That's really all I have to say. But if you guys are not paying attention, and you don't feel a sense of hurt, what are you doing? Justice for Patrick.
Hello, my name is Devin. I unfortunately find myself being a citizen of Grand Rapids. Just moved here. And I hate this in my bones. I hate that I am here and that we have to tell you that a wrong thing is in fact wrong. If we have created a system wherein there is a class of people who can murder with impunity, we have done something wrong. And you know that. I know that. Everyone in this room knows that. You know it in your bones. And the whole of human ingenuity has led us here to where people have to line up and plead for everyone to recognize that a wrong thing is in fact wrong. That's bad. We've made a bad thing. And I have been taught my whole life that when you make a bad thing, you have to fix it. That's just common sense, baby. I yield my time.
Mark back again. I had a feeling this was going to be a mistrial. Even before the trial started, something was going to happen. Now there's going to be a retrial. Let's hope it'll be a retrial. But I wouldn't be surprised if they move it out the city of Grand Rapids. Probably move it somewhere in Ottawa County, which is basically what I call Alabama. I'm not going to be surprised if that happens. Just for Patrick. Now, I want to talk about an event that's going to be at Van Allen Arena on June 7th. I want to know who are the bozos that scheduled Greg Gutfeld. He's a racist. misogynist. He think he's funny, but he's not. He's going to be at Van Allen Arena. I'm going to spew hate, rhetoric, bullcrap, and everything that he's known for, which most of y'all see on Fox News every day. It's not good. I suggest that, well, it's too late now because he's already scheduled, but I suggest that individuals should make your feelings known. Now, I don't care about what Greg Gutfeld says, because he has problems of his own. I blame the management company at Van Allen Arena for their incompetence, the stupidity, and the lack of knowledge for having someone like that individual come to this city and spread lies like he always does on TV. Boycott Tesla.
Hello, my name is Naomi Began from the First Ward, and I'm here to ask for community-owned safety. Why don't police respect or know our rights? Why aren't cops trained to work with or accommodate those who are deaf or nonverbal? This puts disabled people at risk every time they encounter a police officer. A community member in a wheelchair and his caretaker were assaulted by Grand Rapids Police Department last week. They were at a protest using the bike lane for accessibility and were forced to the sidewalk, imposing on their safety and accessibility. Sergeant Daryl Howard overpowered the caretaker and took a hold of the individual's wheelchair, jerking them around and causing whiplash and potentially other injuries. The caretaker was detained and denied access to their necessary medications. This is unacceptable. Officer P. Mart opened pepper spray on the peaceful crowd, including upon former Commissioner and State Senate candidate Ivan Diaz. Community members have also witnessed Officer Allen sharing the same hateful brutality as Sergeant Howard and Officer P. Mart. First it's us, and then it's your friends, and then it's your family, and then it's other city officials, and it will be you one day too. We're living under fascism, and our city officials must be vocal and active about doing anything they can about it now. And justice for Patrick. We demand a retrial. And I also want to share that our city budget is 35% of it allocated to the Grand Rapids police department. And I would appreciate them having to I appreciate the ballot proposal that was introduced in 2022 for community-owned safety so that we can make them apply each year for a city budget. So you guys have to look over it and make sure it's appropriate, and for community-owned safety, for us to have a voice on who's on our police department, as well as the policies that entails. And I would also like for you guys to have your own personal message on how you feel about the police department and what's going on, and justice for Patrick and supporting that so we all feel supported. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Kenneth Cortez. I have been living in Grand Rapids for 23 years now, and it's always the same story every time I come up to this podium. It's new faces up here. There are familiar faces up here, and people that I've done work with and people that I hope to do work with in the future. One thing I know from building neighborhoods and doing development work with organizations and people is that people mean well. I'm going to say that about police as well. As people, they mean well. But they put the badge on and they cross this line and they form a gang. The thin blue line is a gang. It's all across the country. I would know because I've spent about 50 to 60,000 miles on cars that I've bought with my own gas and my own money for hotels, traveling around the country for the last 5 or 6 years, watching as they've celebrated behind barriers under those thin blue line flags after they've killed black and brown bodies. People being murdered by police with impunity while police celebrate. And then they get to go home to their families. Christopher Scher, he killed somebody. I'm not here to say that it's murder. Clearly there was a mistrial. Even with the manslaughter charge, there was a mistrial. Chris Becker, he allowed not one, not two, but potentially 3 people with a direct connection to law enforcement on the jury for some odd reason, I don't know. Being the son of an attorney, I understand that, maybe 1 gets by, but 3, that's a little bit ridiculous because if you ask me from a police killing, why would you have that many people connected to the police? How can you be impartial? How can all of them be impartial? 1 maybe. Understood. So everybody's asking for a retrial in the city of Grand Rapids. I want to know what it's going to take to get our state attorney general, Dana Nessel, to step in. That's what I want to know. And I want to know how you all are going to feel about this getting taken over from our grand city. We love this city. I love this city. I do so much work in this city. And I would hate for us to have that black eye and that smear from not being able to serve justice where justice is due because we have to have the state come in and take over. I'm from Flint. I understand what it's like for the state to come in and take over. My dad is from Detroit. There's a lot of things that happen where the state has to come in and take over. Grand Rapids wasn't supposed to be like that, and this is the second time in 5 years where I've stood on this podium and said Grand Rapids wasn't supposed to be like that. Thank you.
Hello, I am Romar Randy Morales from the 1st Ward. One of my occupations is a security specialist, and so one of the skills I've accrued over the years is forms of de-escalation of violence. Growing up in West Michigan, I did have friends whose family members were police officers in the GRPD. And one of the things that I remember, and it starkly comes in my mind about the current trial, was the culture of a warrior that they bring up. They are, in their minds, the only line between extreme chaos and the rest of us in the community. Now, government, in one of its key points, is a monopoly on violence. And as citizens, we voluntarily cede that capacity of violence to the people who manage that. In this case, the GRPD. I find it scary that the men and women in blue have a mindset, or at least there has been several of them with a mindset thinking that the citizens they protect are lesser. They dehumanize them. I find that scary because they are just like us. They are humans who have been given the ability to be trained and to then use the authorization of violence to try to police and keep us safe. And I want to advocate for more community oversight into their training, into their capabilities, because obviously the city is having difficulties with this currently. The culture needs to change in some way, shape, or form. And I look to you as the people that we've elected to look after and care for our neighborhoods. And this is one of the problems that I'm seeing, that I'm living. I live here. I work here. I love the city, but I want to feel safe in it. And I want to feel safe from the people that are supposed to make us safe. Thank you for listening to me, and thank you for listening to us all tonight.
Hello, Russ Olmsted, West Side, Grand Rapids. Community member, but I'm also, I've served on the Civilian Appeals Board for a number of years. I've been a chair, former chair at this point. For those of you who don't know what the Civilian Appeals Board is, it is a board that once Internal Affairs does an investigation, if the complainant does not agree with the outcomes of Internal Affairs investigation, they can appeal to our board on behalf of the city. We will review the case and determine whether or not we agree with the findings of Internal Affairs or if we disagree. It's a board that is not heavily utilized, unfortunately, for our city. It is a portion of community oversight. However, it is lacking in what it can do as community oversight. I want to stress that I'm here speaking on my own opinions, not representing the board's official opinion in any capacity. I am expressing my opinions on this as a community member and per my experience on this board. I've been through trainings on use of force through the police department since 2017, when I first went through the Citizens Police Academy and then served on this board. I did so with the Citizens Police Academy, trying to understand what policies we have, what practices we have, how they interact with people in the community. How can I understand this? Perhaps there's a misunderstanding on my behalf of how these things are interacting. And I can say, after seeing repeated interactions between our police and the community and repeated trainings, again, 1 year since 2017, I have yet to have a training on de-escalation on this board. I've yet to see a cohesive training on de-escalation techniques. When I was watching the trial and I'm listening to testimony, I'm thinking about it in context of what if this had made it to our board? What if Internal Affairs have investigated this and it made it to our board? The policies that are in place would have made it impossible for the board to find anything other than he obeyed policy. That is not right. On the Civilian Appeals Board, there's nothing we can do about that. We are there to look at any sort of finding from Internal Affairs and decide based on that evidence. We cannot do anything about policy, but you can. It has been years since this happened and decades since the community has been demanding changes on these policies and the practices. We don't need to wait for a verdict to do that. You don't need to wait for a verdict to do that. And these policies have not gone far enough. That was clear through the testimony. So please act before this happens again. Change our policies so that if this were to happen, this shroud of ambiguity that allows for a mistrial is not there.
SIT. Good girl. My name is Kevin Bowman, and this is my service animal's Princess, since she seemed to put a lot of people in a frenzy. But it's never a problem with the police and their dog. But I want to come before and say, like the man said, we don't want Chris Baker to try the case. He did. He had his chance. We want the Attorney General to file charges. We seen the mockery. The whole trial was a mockery. We seen it from the German to the 3 years to Trump got out of office for them to try the case as a trial. To to the antagonizers outside the courthouse. But it's beyond Christopher Becker. It's beyond Christopher Shore. Patrick Lawyer. It's JRPD. It's their procedures. One thing for sure is Operation DICE. Data informed community engagement. I don't know how long we got to scream that, how they harassing and profiling us and criminalizing us to where we can't even get on a jury. No black people was on that jury stand when it was black jurors that was called. They didn't get called back for a reason. It's just so much to even talk about. But I don't even want to dwell on that. I really want to come up here more for my people. I want to tell you, just say, stop taking pleas, run that prelim, ask for that discovery, challenge them traffic stops, challenge them. This is how they get away with killing us. Well, they got a reason to stop us. They got a million reasons to stop us, but they're not being challenged. And they make it more and more harder. We ain't got representation. The public defenders and prosecutors, they all friends. They laddy-gag and talk in the courtroom while we outside stressing about charges with no evidence, to barely none. But they're pressing to charges with no evidence. They want us to trial, they got us sent in jail and stuff, but they had plenty of evidence to charge Chris, and he didn't put no effort into even none. So, like I said, stop taking these pleas, man. Stand up. Stop being scared. Don't let these public defenders talk you into pleas. Press that discovery. Ask for a speedy trial. Motion to quash. Stop letting these police, these so-called representatives, because they're not representing us. They have representatives. We got these organizations act like they represent them, but they part-time. Anybody representing us, anybody going to these courthouses with us where they railroad us left and right. Left and right. So, as my people, stand up. Stop being punks to these police officers that's harassing us. They living two lives. People say, oh, they go home to their family, but when they come out on that badge, they harassing us. They profiling, assaulting us, charging us with jaywalking, little small stuff. And I want to put my petition out there that we want to petition that the dash cams, court proceeding, all that be updated to a live public network. Not because these 4 years they denying them, they partially denying them. They making us charges, arm and leg, splitting them up. We got to pay $400.
Sir, can you wrap it up? You're at the end of your 3 minutes.
I'm sure.
Thank you.
Come on.
Good girl.
Hello, Shannon Tanis, displaced from the First Ward. On the Patrick Loyola, when it first happened, I sent communication letter in support of Patrick's family. As someone that has witnessed their loved one be murdered in front of them, I did not get the community support that Patrick's family is getting, or the financial support, or the special attention from city bodies to help uplift them. But what I did get was a conviction for life without parole for the defendant that shot my beloved significant other. Similarities in that case was gunshots to the back and to the head. Jury deliberated for, I think, about 30 minutes. Very easy conviction. What I see here is, I don't know if Patrick's family is aware, but Mr. Johnson and Mr. Crump are both Freemasons. And a lot of city officials and people on the police department and judges are part of that order. So it's kind of interesting how these people move on the scene when it's a public relations hot topic and special interest to have handlers come in and control the situation. So it was kind of inevitable that the conviction was not going to happen and that it was going to be result in a hung jury. The amount of time that has gone into planning this is very obvious. So I suggest that the Attorney General come in and move the jurisdiction for another trial as far up north as possible. So maybe that we could get a community of jury pool that is not tainted and could actually present a verdict either way that the public would be more secure with and trusting, because as it being here, it's been too publicized. When I see the aspect of the protesting, I see emotional charge from both sides. The fact of proper engagement to help organize more peaceful protests would be more proactive instead of allowing this to transpire. I also would like to bring attention that I was retaliated against by Dwelling Place, and that's part of my displacement after I notified this body that I had the CEO removed in November. Thank you.
Time's up. Thank you. Seeing no further comment, we will move on to commissioners' comments. Commissioner Usasi?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for coming out this evening. I have a couple of thoughts, and I know it's the end of the day and it's a long day, but I feel a sense of responsibility because I was on the City Commission on April 3rd of 2022, and I was the only one. Obviously, we had our appointed officials who were here up on this body, but I was on City Commission that day, and so I want to do a bit of a timeline. I want to talk about some of the recent things that were discussed. I want to talk about some of the things that we talked about today, and some of the things I think that I've learned through this process. I think somebody asked earlier, what is the relationship that you have with the police department? And, I think about that broadly, and I think it's complicated, like a lot of relationships. The GRPD was with me on one of the worst days of my life when my husband was assaulted randomly. And when that happened, he asked the question of why did this happen to him? And I didn't have a really good answer for him. But I think it really goes to some of the work that we talked about last week, or actually the last commission meeting. And, full disclosure, he's part of this work. Commissioner Perdue is part of this work of a Just GR that really looks at where should investment go inside of our entire public safety system? Where are the true costs? What are we all bearing in this? And, quite honestly, I was joking with city manager. I'm like, I want a lot of time on this because this is something that I think I've talked about in the past with Commissioner Knight. Obviously, I just said Commissioner Perdue is part of this work, and Mayor, I know you've been actively, Mayor was the person who was engaged in this work. It's complicated because I've been somebody who's been charged with a crime that I didn't commit when I was 18 years old. And I had the privilege of having the ability to have parents who got an attorney for me. And I did end up actually suing, and I got my fees and fines associated with filing. But I also have decided to be a part of the inside game. I'm part of trying to work administratively on this work. And I think, I look at you, Russ, and you've been on that body. I was on that body in 2006. It was very different than even 2017. But I want to go to the timeline of what occurred after April 3rd of 2022. We got a pretty quick text message from our city from our city manager, had some press conferences, and by June 9th, Christopher Scher was charged. And there's a whole legal proceeding, there's a whole employment proceeding that occurred as well, but there was a recommendation made from our chief to the city manager for termination as the city manager's decision, and that occurred. And so, I think some of the comments have been quite honestly, we don't always speak out about the trial because this is not done. There is the trial that is occurring, which many of you pointed out is certainly in the purview of Chris Becker. He did decide to try it. I don't know what he's going to do, but it sounds like he's going to be responsive in that. How do we not have this continue on? And I do appreciate the statement from the city that recognized the push and pull that I felt all day long of people writing me, young people in my life, how does this happen to other people of I don't think this should have ever gone into a courthouse. That's really kind of what's been in my inbox. Thank you, Chief, for doing the interview, and thank you, Fox 17, for really highlighting some of the these local stories of what happened in that immediate aftermath. On July 26th of 2022, we had a very full committee of the whole meeting where Chief, who at that point, you'd been here for like 3 months or something, and we did a full review of, I just pulled up the presentation when folks were talking, our use of force policy. Really, probably right when I first started commission, there was that language around warrior, and that was a shift in that meeting. And I think that the chief, city manager, there was, conversations about how do we change this, what's happened in the city, and particularly looking at the pieces around, what is that sanctity of life, what is the use of force, and then we're here. That was 2022, and then we're here today, and we still, you are unsure what's going to happen. And I will continue to say that I'll do a review of the timeline because I think I was here in that moment, and I was here in those moments after that, and I think it's important for all of us to remember there's also an employment piece that may occur as well, depending on what occurs. And so I feel that that's the last thing I should say about, kind of what's occurred. What I do want to say is some of the questions I had today as it related to our public safety conversation were related to some of the things that I heard out in the audience. So I think Brandon Davis was in the back. I think one of the conversations we had was, what have those investigations look like as it relates to our Office of Public Oversight and Accountability? I think at that time, that was pretty groundbreaking in our state and probably across the country. What have been some of that, usage? I also heard, again, I'll go to you, Russ, in terms of CAB and what do people actually fulfill that? And then there's the internal investigations, and then there's, what is the right door for people? And so, that was the question I had in terms of the number of investigations. I think also continued conversations about those that are differently abled, reaching out to the chief to ask that question about the individual. I'm sorry, I don't know this person's name, and I don't mean to diminish who they are, but working through other colleagues who are more active in disability spaces. My understanding is wheelchairs are an extension of an individual's body and their personhood. So I think, just like earlier today, somebody, said, we haven't established my gender identity. And I would say as a cisgendered person, that is probably something that I don't always think about. I have my pronouns on my city commission page, but I think that's some good feedback. And how do we make sure we're not misgendering people, but also thinking about that in the disability space as well. So I hope that I'm making sense. I'm trying to process everything that I heard today and everything that I felt today, and quite honestly, everything that I've felt since 2022, which is a lot. I want to say one of the biggest pushes in 2022 and even in our last city commission meeting has been the focus on the civilianization of our police force. Individuals mentioned the percentage as it related to, a 90s ballot proposal around the amount of money that goes in directly into the police department's budget. And so I think one of the things that we've done, and again, I will say, credit to our chief and to city manager, we have been able to civilianize positions that were not previously civilianized. I'm going to count that as a win. I know that doesn't take away from, somebody being killed, but I do want to say that I think that is a win, and that's something that I will continue to focus on. That's something that I focused on in my first election. Chief talked about our co-response model. We talked about what is the evaluation of the types of crimes that are happening in our city. So we've talked in past years about the increase in domestic violence. Commissioner Purdue, you brought that up earlier today. We have some of the support services, but what are we doing on the front end? And then the last thing I'll just say is I have one other thing, but these are the things that I've learned. Today I learned from my good friend Kenyatta Brame who is part of our civil service body, told me, well, you know, I'm on the jury review committee for the county. It's a body that is a county body. Again, the court that Christopher Scher was tried in was circuit court. So we are pulling from a jury pool of the entire Kent County. It is not a reflection of the city of Grand Rapids, and I'm seeing head nods from some of the attorneys. And so he said, do you know that we review this every single year to look at the jury pool, to ask these questions? I did not know that up until like 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago. If you don't know, but there was some of the conversation I also heard today about our FOIA piece that Mr. Brandon Davis's office has engaged in very robust Know Your Rights campaigns, talking about, you know, sessions that had 100 people. I don't know what you're offering, Brandon, to get 100 people, but that is a commendable number to have individuals in our community come and to learn about what are their rights. And so trying to balance, again, the realities of the relationships that we have. I also appreciated the comments as it related to our traffic stop study. I also served on the traffic stop study in 2017, and I think there have been a lot of iterations. One of the challenges was just truly identifying individuals' race and ethnicity in the appropriate manner. And so I think we've had hopefully some better advancements with, like, you know, census pieces and things since that time. So I think that's going to be a number one thing that I'll focus on as well, because those are things in our purview. Those are things that we can measure and monitor. That's what I wanted to say about what many of you came out today to talk about, what many people just on the street I've talked about, people in my family ask us about. I went out to dinner before this, and the waiter asked me about it after finding out what my job was. The last thing I'll say is a little bit more internal to the city, but, and I think the comptroller has left. We've had a lot of conversations about what is this, you know, our oversight body, you know, what is the evolution of our city charter and the auditing review. And so I hope that we can collectively come together to find a way where we have what is the day-to-day financial operations of the city. I know, Scott, you're in this interim role, so thank you for taking that on as well during this budget season. We have our city treasurer who was here earlier, and we have this comptroller role. It truly has to be a cohesive environment, and so I will continue to hopefully ask for that. How do we utilize our systems, like our ERP systems, things that we're making investments in, to have good, solid oversight? And when we find things that are wrong, we fix them. So those are my comments for tonight. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you for people for... You said you didn't want to be here, but you were here, and I just appreciate you, colleagues, for the other conversations we had today regarding our budget, as well as the climate adaptation plan. Thank you.
Commissioner Perdue?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming tonight and engaging tonight, and even outside of this space around our budget conversations over the last few weeks, and certainly about the trial and the outcome and the incident, which I don't think any of us individually or even our entire community will be the same afterwards. I do want to publicly share my condolences with the Lyoya family. No one deserves to die violently, and he certainly did not deserve to die in the way that he did. Many people kind of talked a little bit tonight about what's next and the disappointment in a hung jury, and just want to just reiterate that that decision really is up to the Kent County prosecutor, who is an elected position. And so encourage folks, as you advocate to us, and if that is your ask to us, to be sure to direct that to the person who has that decision-making power for what you want to see in terms of next steps. You know, I'm committed to working with all of you here and people who are not in this room today to make sure that something like that never happens again. Today, during our budget conversations and looking at issues on the horizon and work on the horizon, our Office of Public Accountability, of Oversight and Public Accountability was part of those plans and shared their plans now and into the future. And I did ask what sort of policy work are they expecting to dig into? What sort of reporting and data work will they bring to us? And so one thing they gave us a heads up on that I want to share with you all tonight, because I think it's extremely relevant, is looking at OPA's oversight and jurisdiction and expanding that, and to expand its access to data and reporting, including doing an audit of use of force within GRPD. And so I think those are really healthy measures to really look in, analyze, and make recommendations to move forward. I also want to say that community is organizing right now and coming up with specific asks and next steps action items. And so I know there was two events mentioned today. One is Urban League, NAACP, and A Glimpse of Africa are having something tomorrow. I do plan to attend and listen in and be available kind of informally for folks. And really am committed to working together to say how do we move forward as a community? How do we heal our hearts? How do we heal our minds? And how do we strengthen our policies to prevent something like this and any other tragedy and violence from happening again in our city? So with that, I sincerely want to thank folks for coming tonight, for engaging. Next week, we will approve our budget. We've had a lot of really great conversations, everything from fines and fees and parking, as folks mentioned, to violence prevention, to neighborhood revitalization. And so encourage you all to tune in and or reach out if you would like to kind of dig into some of those areas more before our final vote next week. Next week, right?
Yep.
Next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Belcheck.
I just want to say thank you again. I feel like my colleagues have covered this extensively for much more experience than I have had the privilege to sit up here for. But I am listening and hearing all the deep pain, the trauma that is in the community, the concern that we have. And I'm reminded that one of the beauties that we still have in this city is that we have our ability to talk, to speak, to learn, and to share each other's stories. And that's what I heard tonight. And it is very important that we remember to do it always with the understanding that we can't understand what's in somebody else's head, heart, or what their shoes and the walk that they've had to be in is like. So I would just encourage everyone to continue to push forward with respect for one another, because our stories matter at every level, in any kind of context. And in this role that I've stepped into, I see it as an opportunity to look for where the Venn diagram of overlap is and how we can utilize those as leverage to be able to make real transformative change and sustainable change in ways that make sense. That could be in the budget, that could be in how we're looking at our police, it could be looking at how we're looking at the climate action plan. It's all because I'm willing to spend the time to go deeper than has been done maybe traditionally. That doesn't mean I have the answers, and I look to community to continue to tell the stories as a result. So I am really emboldened by what I hear from so far on the commission and what we're doing to address safety, to address a healthy, clean environment, to address how we're going to have an economically viable and hopefully an incredibly vital city for the long haul. And I'm really looking forward in my own thinking to the future. What is it that we are creating the city of the future? So it seems like this has been a very serious evening, and I don't want to discount that, but I do want to remind us all that we are in a interesting, exciting year because we're celebrating 175 years as a city. And we may not be having Art Prize, festival, and we're not in charge of Art Prize. That's a private entity. But we are having our happy birthday celebration on June 7th. So whatever your feelings are, we can come together as a community. And if you want to celebrate in a collaborative video effort, we have vertical video being collected. You can submit it through May 23rd. So I will pass it on to someone else from here.
Commissioner Robbins.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I won't beleaguer what my colleagues have said too, but just wanted to add my my acknowledgement that there's a lot of weight. I think right now, a lot of strong emotions from both sides. I see it on TV. I see it in the streets of the people I talk to. I see it in my mailbox certainly, and I think. One of my colleagues at one point said, when there's a situation that's out of your control, sometimes what you can do is just focus on what you can commit to yourself. And so for me, I think the best way forward is just committing to maintaining respect with one another, asking forgiveness and extending grace when need be. And I think if we can all commit to doing that, I think we can at least find some positive in a very heavy situation. So with that, have a good night.
Commissioner Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to continue to repeat what my colleagues said. I do want to honor and respect the courage that people had to come in and share their pain, because I realize that sometimes it's really difficult to gather those words and those thoughts together to be able to share how we're really feeling. And I think not only today, but over the last couple of weeks, that we have kind of relived a situation, right? And we thought we were going to be able to move forward and begin to start that process of healing that needs to happen in order for us to move on from a community. When something happens, when an offense or something happens to a person, the lenses that you see that issue happen through is how we tend to see everything else that may be surrounded. And so we begin to judge it through those lenses. And I remember when Chief came, I wasn't here when the incident happened, but I was out in the streets listening to our neighbors and walking and marching and really trying to support our community. And I asked if I could have a meeting with him because this community has gone through so much change and so much pain and hurt in those spaces with different leadership that we may have had in place. And so I just told him, I said, I just need to hear your heart. Like, I need to know how you feel about this community and how you plan to move forward. I think he told me that his suitcase was still packed because he had only been here for 2 weeks when the incident happened. And I listened to him because I needed to look through a different lens and make sure I wasn't going to continue to judge him on things that have happened in our community in the past and hope that change was going to happen. Now, change has happened, but there's never a perfect situation, and we always need to take opportunity to step back, reevaluate, and then move forward and continue to shift and change the way that we do things if we want to see change. And so I'm grateful for that conversation because he didn't have to talk to me. He didn't have to take that time out, and he did not have to be transparent in that moment, but he was. So I'm going to remain hopeful that we as a community can continue to move forward and heal. That hasn't happened yet. I have a lot of emotions and feelings about what happened. I will hang on to that. My son is a police officer, so as soon as this incident happened, I called him. And I told him how I was feeling, and I asked his opinion on it. And we had some really deep conversation. And my side, from a mother, as a son that is a police officer, he was shot at many times, and he could have lost his life. I don't know how I would have felt if that would have happened to him. But if he had been on the other side of that, I still don't know how I would feel if that would happen to any of my children. But I know the pain of loss is something that's not easy to get over. And so as we continue to move forward and see what's going to happen in our community, I pray that we can get to a place as a people where we can begin to heal. I pray that that family receives the support and the peace that they need to move forward in this situation. I pray that the decisions that are made are the correct. Did somebody say?
What about the justice? We're praying.
I'm going to continue on.
Sir.
I'm going to continue on.
All right.
Because I can't change anything in and of myself. We need to continue to use our voices. We need to continue to stand strong. We need to do it the right way. And we need to hold justice accountable. I believe that change is going to happen in the future, and I'm hoping for change to happen so our community can heal and move forward and do great things for our future. Thank you.
City Clerk, City Attorney, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for your work today and the staff for all the work for the variety of topics that was discussed today. I just want to remind the public of the Neighborhood Summit this Saturday, May 17th. It's going to be at GVSU Pew Center all day. Please come out and hear about various community services, city services, and interact with community leaders. I also was pleased to be part of the community celebration last week on Cinco de Mayo and the committee to honor Cesar Chavez hosting that, so thank you for that. I do appreciate all the work that went into the discussion on the climate adaptation and action and adaptation plan, and of course your careful deliberation over the budget. Commissioner Perdue, thanks for that question today. I have some preliminary information, but I want to be precise, so I will make sure we respond to entire City Commission on that fee question. A couple of things I want to say in light of all the other comment. I appreciate Commissioner Sassi's reflection. I do remember that day in April. And I think what the trial has done is it has fixated our community's attention back to 2022, that tragic day. And now the questions are being asked of both from the uncertainty of the mistrial, what's next? People want closure, both sides. And so I acknowledge that we don't have that, but while we have that question, other people are asking, what can we do to move forward? And so I am looking forward to the conversation at the Public Safety Committee meeting on next Tuesday, where the police chief will also be present to highlight, I think, some of the things that have been done since 2022 and things that we are also contemplating. We can always improve in every area of local government as well as individually and personally. So I am looking forward to that conversation and that discussion. Unfortunately, there's been so much, and rightly so, on what has happened in 2022 with the killing of Patrick Lyoya, but I heard one article, one coverage of the things that have been done since, so we're going to try to highlight some of that. I do also want to highlight, I think that same meeting, OPA will also be discussing some of the other preventative things that they've been working on with community partners. And I will end my remarks with that. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor, can I ask City Manager a follow-up question? I know there are some people who share concerns about some things that have happened recently. So could you just really quickly, in that vein, outline some of our processes around if people do have complaints or concerns, the best place to direct them to?
Yeah. So thank you for that. And I think the mayor did some of that during the meeting where people are complaining about use of force. So there are several processes. One, there is the Internal Affairs Department and the Police Department where you can file a complaint, and there is, I believe, I'm looking at the chief, both in-person and online access form to do that. Secondly, you could also, if those who are not comfortable filing complaints within the police department, could also file a complaint directly with our Office of Public Accountability, Oversight and Public Accountability, Brandon Davis. In that manner, he can also walk you through the complaint, and I believe the way that we have, one of the other reforms, renegotiated contract is if a complainant requests, he could sit in the interview with the department so that they're not by themselves. So I would encourage those of you who have those concerns to either see the police chief or our oversight office.
Thank you. So I Of course, want to affirm what my colleagues have set up here, and it's a great comfort to me to have people up here who have a heart for justice and who have a heart for trying to serve this community. I will say that I've spent most of my adult life trying to figure out how to make our justice system better. And I am not done with that work. It's one of the reasons that I ran for mayor. It's one of the big reasons I ran for mayor. I think that our community has to acknowledge, and I appreciate Commissioner Robbins' comments. I often say it's hard for people to admit mistakes if we don't pattern forgiveness as a community. Because if we don't pattern forgiveness, it's very, very hard to not pretend that we're perfect. But I will say this. I will say this.
He's not perfect. He murdered.
You, sir,
He is a murderer.
let me say that as a community, we can always strive to do better. We can always work to do justice better. And we have to do that together. And we can and we will. And that is true for every single member of our community who cares about justice, who cares about safety, and who cares about building up our community. And so I hope that we will renew ourselves to that work, and we will remember that sometimes the evidence does not seem to be compelling that our culture is improving, but we all have to own and contribute to improving our culture and our community. And so that's all of our work. So thank you all for coming. That adjourns the meeting.